Welcome to OOO, an out of ordinary podcast where we dig deep into case studies and the nitty gritty of Web3 marketing. You'll find here all the amazing people that are building Web3, so stick to us as we address their marketing secrets and learn how to build amazing products and brands. Hello everyone, I'm Alex, your fellow Web3 marketer and the host of an Out of Ordinary podcast. This is episode 59. If you don't already know, I'm launching a community for all you Web3 marketers. The reason for that is that I know resources are scarce and I think together we can push the pedal. So please make sure you follow me on Twitter to stay up to date to the newest things that I'm going to be launching soon. I've recently partnered up as well with Eden, an AI tool designed to get the best out of your CV and help you land a job in Web3. We also made a special sign-up link for this OOO community so we can tailor the best experience for you. If you want to sign up and test it out, link in the description as always. Last but not least, I also wrote a pretty juicy review of Token 2049 in Singapore that you can also find in the description of this episode. Now, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guest. I'm pretty sure actually you know her. Samantha Yap is the founder and CEO of Yap Global, an international PR firm specializing in helping crypto and Web3 projects tell their stories. She's a pioneer in the crypto PR field and a key crypto quote-unquote translator. As a journalist and producer by trade, she has built Yap Global to be the link between cryptocurrency technology and mainstream press. Since establishing Yap Global in 2018, Samantha has grown the team across London, Singapore, New York, and Cape Town, and launched the Yap Cast podcast, the Context newsletter, and contextualized events. Good morning, Samantha. How are you?
Good morning. Good. How are you?
Great. I'm super happy to have met you in Singapore, like face to face. And thank you so much for taking the time to being on the podcast. I've seen a lot of people like really, they're really super interested to hear the conversation that I'm going to be having with you today. So very happy to have you here. And if you want, like, let's kick it off and let me know, by letting us know like how you got into Web3.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your background story.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I think it's great that you're doing this podcast, focused on Web3 marketing. I got into Web3 in 2017, mainly into crypto. I fell down the rabbit hole, as everyone does, with Bitcoin and Ethereum. But what really fascinated me about this technology is its potential to transform the future of money. I was very impressed with just how Bitcoin was this currency that no central organization ran or controlled, and it was a peer-to-peer payment system. And I really think that's the essence of how crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of this began. And then that's also spurred, this movement of Web3 technology and how that's shaping the future of the internet.
And what about like Yap? Like what was the main issue that you saw in the space and you wanted to solve by launching this agency?
Yeah, so I was a journalist by training. I actually was a journalist in Singapore. I worked for the national broadcaster. I was a storyteller. I covered current affairs. So I was journalist by training, and I did storytelling as a living. And I noticed that this space needed a lot of work with storytelling. You had some really brainy and smart people in the space, but they would be challenged by explaining their technology in an easy to understand way. So I was quite impressed and passionate about the technology, but I also was a good storyteller. And that's kind of how Yap Global started. I started helping projects early in the space, just shape their stories, help them launch. And that's how Yap Global began in, late 2017, early 2018. That was off the back of the ICO craze, and kind of into a bear market. But I have to say, I was privileged to work with interesting projects at the time. I supported the largest and earliest Bitcoin miner in the space, Bitmain. So that was quite fascinating.
I mean, I think everybody knows that being in Web3 is, or like a year in Web3 is like 1,000 years in Web2. And especially that you've been in the space for 7 years, which is quite impressive. Like, how do you feel like the approach to PR and communication has evolved over time?
Yeah. So being in the space for many years, now that you say 7 years, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot to keep up with, but there is an art and a skill to keeping up with the trends because every year there will be new terms, there will be new technology and new innovations. So I guess the question is, what has evolved, what has changed over time with PR? I guess it's gotten noisier, but then I think with Yap Global and with the work that my team does, we've gotten better at filtering out the noise. I think reputation takes years to build, and so and it's also about sustainably building brands and reputation. So we've had clients with us for more than 2-3 years now. That's quite a long time in the crypto space, especially with lots of new projects launching and some probably not working out after a year or two. So yeah, I think over time it's just how do you get better at filtering out the noise.
What do you mean by the noise? Like, how would you define that?
Yeah, so over time, let's just take Web3 and let's just take the tech. There's a lot of talk about infrastructure toolings still today, right? There's many layer ones, layer twos, different types of ways transactions are being faster, cheaper. That's just not changed. There's also like private, like zero knowledge technology. All of these parts to building the infrastructure rails to the Web3 future that has grown so much. Ecosystems are growing larger, so it's noisier. There's a lot more projects today than there were 7 years ago. There's a lot more sectors. It's so crazy because crypto and Web3 is seen as niche, but actually within crypto and Web3, there's a lot, of sectors, if I'm going to use that term for this space. And so I think filtering out what matters, what, the audience is going to care about, what, mainstream people are going to capture from all of this happening with the build, like with people building new things, is an art and a skill. So that's what I mean by noise. There's a lot more larger ecosystems, larger places, more people involved in this space.
I think one of the things that I find the most amusing, let's say, is that everybody's groundbreaking, has a groundbreaking project, is a trailblazer in this thing. Especially, I see that quite a lot. Like when PR agencies like pitch speakers to me, everybody is like groundbreaking project, trailblazer in the space. I'm like, what does this even mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just sometimes it's just a bunch of people that came from like the corporate world. Especially like
so
people that are doing
then
and stuff.
yeah, but then the work here with PR managers and Web3 marketers is how do you get a project to stand out from all the other pitches that a journalist gets without using the cliche terms like groundbreaking, trailblazing, cutting edge, because those are just cliche. And how do you ensure that the actual, product and project that you're building is getting its fair share of attention and weight in a story? The way we do that is staying as close to the innovation of the technology. It's like numbers speak louder than words and technology speaks louder than words, right? So you have to, when we choose the projects that we represent, we want to make sure that they're building something genuinely, new, that's actually going to be that, and we want to work with teams that are solid, that we know are going to stick around for years to come. So I like to say we also have to think like a VC. VCs are out to invest in winning projects. We also need to pick the winners that we represent. And then the way we market that and we PR that and communicate them is to explain to journalists why this project is, genuinely shaping the space. So we do rely on a lot of data as well, because there can be a lot of like you say, words and fluff, but what is on chain is not debatable, right? So as I said, numbers speak louder than words. So for example, working with the largest liquid staking protocol, it is clear that, Lido is the leader in the industry, and we can back that up with, their volume and just how much activity is happening on the protocol. That's kind of how we cut through the noise and demonstrate to journalists why they should, pay attention or cover our client.
One of the main issues that I've noticed personally is that like many times I've seen projects wanting PR just because they were like raising or they were just launching and so on, but they didn't really have like much to say. They didn't have like a story, didn't have like a proper brand, didn't have like much built, let's say, for you, as you said, like to be able to pitch to this journalist and actually sell a story that you think could make some waves or like could make some noise there. So it is a very personal curiosity, and I want to know, like, what do you think are the main misconceptions about PR in the Web3 space, and how do you educate your clients about the true value of this strategic communication?
The challenge with communicating the true value of PR is that it takes time. So in crypto, and especially with how fast and volatile the space changes, it's a highly volatile industry. The markets just move quite rapidly. 1 minute Bitcoin price is rallying, next minute it could be, down. And that's quite, as I said, volatile. So when projects want to launch their token, launch on mainnet, it really depends on the market, sentiment and market movements as well, and appetite for their tokens or for their launch. So the challenge when we talk to projects is they want to see instant results, and they want to see, PR lead to instant, ROI. But that's not how it works with PR. PR is about reputation. It's about building trust. It's about building credibility. Credibility cannot be built in 3 months. It has to be built over time. You can't just expect, even if you just start a friendship, you can't expect, your new friend to trust you straight away. You need to build that over time. So we try to tell our clients, you need to ensure that there's a consistent drumbeat of media stories about you, just to familiarize people with your company and your brand. And you got to do that for a good year to see the compound effects of that. You can't expect that in a 3-month project. So that's what we like to tell, our clients or even prospective clients. We also say to some projects that are too early, we actually recommend them not to work with us. We recommend them to, consider doing some things in-house. We want to make sure that we're working with the teams at the right time. What is the right time? Well, we usually talk to teams that perhaps they've raised a Series A and want to announce it, and it's a significant, figure, and they want to move into a market. So I think at the phase of when they've got a bit of funding in there, in the bag, and they have announcements lined up, that's the best time to engage a PR agency. We basically recommend our clients the perfect timing to work with us.
Do you feel like Web3? I do have a lot of questions here. So I kind of like want to finish it off. Let's say like the subject. One of my main issues is that like I feel like PR in the sense that like press releases and communication with like a journalist and so on. This kind of like bigger projects would make sense to go for like Web3 related like media, let's say. Whereas I've seen like a lot of like smaller ones that, as you said, like, no, it doesn't really make sense for you to like work with us. They would go to like Yahoo Finance, where like their press release would just get dropped in a dump of like other press releases that nobody will ever find, and like it's never gonna get well with like SEO and so on. So that's one of the issues that I see a lot. Then the second issue that I see, so you can also comment on that. The second issue I see is that like I see a lot of PR agencies like pitching me and like other podcasters like to get this like speaker on the pod and so on. And sometimes like even if like I don't really agree with the approach of like these agencies like pitching me, I really like the subject or I really like the speaker and so on. Like I dig a bit into them and so on, and I really sometimes like they come and talk and like the episode is great, and then 2 months later they have changed the product and I'm like, what am I doing here? This is also PR, but I feel like it's so complicated, as you say, to look into all this noise and figure out what actually makes sense. And I was actually talking to somebody recently who was like, oh, but everybody just wants the big people in, the big names in and so on. I'm like, yeah, everybody wants them because they're the most consistent. Like I built my entire reputation around all the speakers that I bring. If I bring somebody that like does rug pulls or like changes the product every 2 months, like what is that going to say about me? Plus,
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot of free work as well.
Yeah.
So
Exactly. So you raised two good points there. So the first one, I think you're referring to using news wires. So there's these agencies. There's one called PR Newswire, Business Wire, and there is a place for them. I think wires have been used mainly for financial PR in a way where listed companies kind of need to announce to their shareholders when they have a meeting or there's been changes. But PR Newswire is not the best way to cut through the noise or get your attention, because you're right. You don't get on the editorial section of media publications. So with every media publication, there's an editorial section that's, the section that's written by the journalists, and that the editor has a say in, and like they have a proper newsroom that, decides what stories make the top stories of the day. And then there's another section, which is, like you said, like a press release that no one really, looks at because there's a bunch of others and it's just press releases copy pasted and just put out there and no one really sees it. So yeah, we don't use news wires for that reason. We ensure that we earn coverage for our clients, and we ensure that we're earning quality and quality coverage that's written by journalists that will make it to the front page or the top story of the outlet that day. And the second point you were talking about with just filtering out, because you as a podcast host also has to filter out who you have as your guests. You're right. You want to make sure you speak to the credible leaders in the space, because that adds to the reputation of this podcast. So you also have to find your trusted trusted PR partners in a sense. There's a place for PR, but there's a number of PR firms out there and PR teams and PR managers. So that's what we want to build with journalists. We want to make sure that when we bring a speaker to a journalist, that we're bringing them someone good and that we're bringing someone credible. And so we do that filtering out for them. We actually find that that's the way we add value and support our, the media outlets that we work with, because they know that, over the years, Yap's been around for 7 years. They know that when we're bringing a speaker, that they're going to be vetted and filtered and gonna add value. We also, as a PR agency, do not do the spray and pray approach. We make sure that when we pitch a story, that we're going to the right journalist at the right outlet. It's not let's blast this email and let's pray that it gets picked up. It's very much relationship based, and it's very tailored and curated. we know it's annoying for podcast hosts like you, Alex, if you're just added on to a distribution list of stories, and it also clouds your inbox, and we don't want to do that to our trusted journalists and media influencers.
Sometimes I wish like podcasters would be treated like as journalists, to be honest, because that's exactly what it is. Like I'm giving you a platform to, yeah, but people don't treat us like that. That's the problem, I guess. And I know like something else you guys do is regarding like partnering up with like conferences. How do you ensure these partnerships effectively contribute to community building and overall like brand visibility for your clients? Because I've seen like quite a big push when it comes to that. And I feel like everybody's also like fighting for attention, like in many of the conferences that I've been to as well.
Yeah. So crypto is quite a global industry. I mean, it is a global industry, but the interesting thing is crypto convenes and gathers at these conferences. And what's cool is there's these flagship conferences. There's DevCon happening in Bangkok this year. Then there's ETH Denver. Then there's, ETHCC happening in Europe. And then, there's Token 249, which you and I were at. And What's interesting is you see the same people at these conferences around the world. We are privileged to be the PR partners of, conferences like Masari Mainnet, ETH Denver, ETHCC. How do we ensure this is beneficial to our clients, but also to the organizers? Is we are responsible for inviting media and giving them a great place to cover the event. So, for example, at ECC this year, we, helped oversee a press room of more than 100 journalists. We supported them with, connecting them with speakers. And so that's kind of how we help get coverage for the event itself, and also the amazing speakers that they have, that they program, as well as our clients.
Do you have some examples maybe of like of how this event or like partnering up with like some of these main events helped like a project or a team or the visibility of a brand that you work with?
Yeah. There's many examples, but I can talk about with ECC this year in Brussels. We were very pleased that our team was supporting getting them in local press, because they're definitely going to get covered by crypto trade press. But what was really cool is we got to see the local national paper called the Tate, as well as Le Echo. This is the Belgian newspapers. They came in and they wrote a really nice, feature piece of Vitalik and covered the event. And so it was really nice. It's actually quite nice to have paper like coverage in the newspapers. So it was a nice weekend spread feature on Vitalik. We also got like a nice daily newspaper write-up the day that the event launched. So I think those were the most memorable wins that we had gotten for our client. Because really, what are we trying to do here in this industry? We're trying to bring more people onto Web3. Everyone's trying to onboard the world to Web3. So we need to reach new audiences. So it's reaching, we know we're going to target, the Block, CoinDesk, Blockworks, all those media outlets, but we want to go beyond that. We want to hit the daily national papers. We want to educate newcomers that are like, why are all these like nerds descending on Brussels? We want to explain to them why this industry is so important and what value it brings. So those were quite memorable pieces of coverage that we landed this year. I enjoy those. I enjoy for example, landing a client on BBC is rare, because BBC will only talk about crypto when, the Bitcoin price is reaching all-time highs and everyone's talking about it. But, you don't get crypto in the headlines in global news all the time. So.
But do you feel like this is because many projects are just a bunch of stuff that nobody understands, or many times it's just people in Web3 that understand some of this technology and it's not exactly catered to the masses, or it's not like built for the masses?
Yeah, I think
So
that's
that some of these founders could come and talk about like, oh, I'm building this and it actually makes sense for like everybody to use.
well, I think the interest in crypto and also the adoption of crypto is reflective of where the industry is at. I think that, as I said, it's still people are still building the infrastructure rails for applications to be built on, on crypto and on chain. But what's missing is the applications. I think Vitalik, in his talk at Token 249, said that, we're not early to crypto anymore, but we're early to crypto being usable. So we're now expecting and should see more applications that are usable by everyday people being built. So I think we're still in that phase of development for the whole Web3 industry.
Another question that I have for you is also like another curiosity of mine, because I feel like a lot of the times, many companies that I speak with, they tell me like, oh, we work with DGens, we target DGen, this is what the product is for. So I feel like storytelling is not exactly part of their strategy in any kind of way. What role do you think storytelling plays in Web3 PR? And do you maybe have any case studies or examples of projects that have used this like properly? They had a story to tell and they have ensured like great visibility through this type of communication.
Yeah, storytelling is the most memorable way for people to build a connection to your brand. The best projects and clients that we work with have a human leader. I mean, all of it. What I mean is a leader that's willing to go out and speak and be present at events and engage with journalists. So the best projects that we work with have a strong founder. We work with Near Foundation as an example. Ilya is a great spokesperson. He does everything from TV interviews to podcasts, and has made time to go to these conferences, across the world. And I think that is that helps with building a brand. So I think storytelling built with human stories and human interests and a human perspective is strong with building a brand. For projects that don't think they need to storytell, they can push other things on marketing, but everyone likes to connect to a story. There are creative ways to market things, which I've seen as well. But yeah, that's why storytelling is important.
But do you feel like it's a storytelling of the product itself? For example, we want to change the face of medicine, and like this is why we use blockchain for blah 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 blah. I don't know. It's just like a random example. Or do you think it's the founder coming there and talk about like, or they have built like a reputation and they're always like the one of the drivers. For example, like the way Vitalik is for Ethereum and like for everything it represents. And even if like people make fun of it sometimes, of him sometimes, I've seen actually a lot of videos of him at Token. It was actually quite funny. And I'm really sorry that I missed him at the Shifai Summit as well. I was so sad about it. But I feel like he's a very good example of like somebody who does have some sort of like story to tell, but pushes the entire brand forward, let's say, or the entire narrative forward.
Yeah. Sorry, you cut out a little bit, but you were talking about Vitalik, right?
Yeah.
I actually I saw his talk at Token, and I actually mentioned this in a tweet. But basically, I do think that Vitalik is the most charismatic and most interesting spokesperson for crypto out there. I mean, it's him. And then maybe it's other personalities like, I mean, I know CZ just got out of jail, but he's very influential. But I think Vitalik is such a great spokesperson. I mean, he's influential for Ethereum, but he also speaks about the benefits of crypto. And yeah, he's a personality, but he also, I mean, I watched his talks. He speaks at almost every major Ethereum event as well. And he's very engaging speaker. And yeah, he does weave in a story with his talk. I think at Token, he spoke about how the logo of Ethereum was actually inspired by this Studio Ghibli, logo or like gem in the castle in the sky show. I don't know. I haven't watched that show, but I just like that he made that connection, and it was so memorable. Like, I remember it, still remember it today. Half the time I'm going to panels at conferences and I don't remember a thing that someone said in a 40-minute panel. But just from Vitalik's talk, he just brings in something visual and engaging and a story, and you remember that story. People love stories. People want to connect to something and relate to a story. So yeah, that's what I would say about the benefits of storytelling.
So, what metrics do you find the most indicative of impact, and what should marketers and founders pay attention to when it comes to PR?
Well, I'm going to speak from a PR perspective, but in terms of filtering through the noise, as I mentioned, I do think that PR is the best for that. There's actually only so few media publications out there, and there's, reputable journalists that, work at these publications, and, they strive for ethical and proper reporting of the space. So I do think getting your story out there, getting your voice heard by these journalists and having them cover you is the best way to build trust and credibility in the space. So in terms of metrics, I'm not a marketer, I admit, but I do think qualitative stories that are positive and meaningful and productive bring a lot of value to a brand.
I think I was asking more from the perspective of I feel like a lot of the times people perceive PR as in oh, I'm gonna just put all this money into this media or this PR campaign, and then I expect thousands of people coming on my website or something like this, or registrations and so on. Which I don't see to be the case, and I feel nobody really understands that. That's one of the reasons why I asked you that. And I wanted to know if your clients have the same kind of expectations.
Well, we have to manage their expectations. The clients that understand PR and understand the value of it, we prefer to work with them. But I think, the thing about PR is it's hard to measure its benefits in just one single metric or one single instance. It's actually just a network effect of building your brand and familiarity with your brand. Our clients have had PR benefit them with, business development. So because they keep popping up and, they keep getting mentioned in the media, then that, helps with building business. It has also helped with investments. So projects that perhaps have already raised Series A but want to go for another strategic round or want to continue raising, they often invest in PR because it helps with building their awareness and brand amongst other investors. With other projects that are also trying to, again, raise more money, they want to also show that they've been putting products out. And so that's why PR announcements about product offerings and partnerships that they've developed also helps with that. So I think the benefits of PR compound and they can only be seen longer term. And again, it's just familiarity with brand. It's it also helps with education and informing people about what you do. And it also helps people remember you because there's always a new project that's launching. And there's and they're launching a new product. But how do you get people to remember what you're doing in the space?
Personally, I've only run campaigns for Web2 projects and not for Web3 and on a local level, not international level. But what I know for sure is that like the last company that I worked for in Web2, the last startup that I worked for, we were used to do like a press release with like a story or something like notable every month and a half, 2 months ish. And when we ended up in this space where we had to like fundraise, we did a crowdfunding campaign for this on this like local platform. We raised close to €1 million in 2.5 hours. And I know for sure it was because we built all that reputation beforehand. I'm not exactly sure if it works exactly the same way, like on an international level or like a bigger scale, but
well, exactly. And it definitely works, right? So if you're a project that's raised a 10 million, Series A, and you want to go for a bigger fundraise, the network effects of a positive story that's disseminated across different media publications, and a nice feature interview or profile on publications like Fortune or TechCrunch would perhaps help them raise another 50 million. There have been case studies. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but yes, for sure, PR has definitely helped projects raise more money, secure more clients, land more deals, and even, especially in DeFi, you're trying to encourage more whales or traders to use your protocol for lending or trading, and if they start hearing more about the features and benefits of your protocol, you're going to get customers. So I think you've hit the nail on the head there, that PR, again, as I said, compounds in its benefits. That's why when we work with projects, we like to work with them for a longer time frame. We cannot do just 3-month projects. That's too short. It is a good way that's just a nice amount of time for us to get to know one another. But I think to see the benefits in 6 months to a year, that's more effective and more meaningful for us as well.
One of the questions that I got from my community is they were saying that they would love to hear about the company milestones that matter the most to push in Web3 versus Web2. Do you feel like there's any differences?
Between Web3 and Web2, no. I mean, the Web3 milestones, sorry, I don't know what that question means in terms of like milestones. Are you just talking about like the difference between Web3 projects, how they grow compared to Web2 projects? Yeah.
I think the question is regarding just like a guess, right? Like, I think the question is regarding like what kind of milestones. So it's like they got the new CEO, they fundraised, they got, I don't know who else, like very big person on their team as CMO. I know, for example, Scale did that, like, I don't know, when they got Andrew as their CMO, and they pushed some of these announcements in media.
Yeah. No, okay, now I know where that question is coming from. I think, it's very different with Web3 protocols that are on-chain, right? Because, these developers would raise money. So obviously there's a seed round, there's Series A. That's kind of aligned with Web2 projects. But where it's different is, in crypto, there's token generation events. There's the beta launch, and then there's the mainnet launch. And then post-mainnet is like your partnerships and your other products. And then, if you've got a token airdrop coming up, that's another major media moment. So I think with Web3, it's a bit different. The other thing with Web3 projects and protocols, a lot of them, need to grow a community and an ecosystem. So that's also a different aspect to Web3 PR that we've seen.
One of the, I think like right now that CZ is out of jail, it's a really good moment to talk about like the crisis communication in Web3 and how do you approach that, especially in a situation in which like the news spreads rapidly and projects can face intense scrutiny, especially online.
The interesting about our industry is that there have been a number of influential leaders that have gone to jail and are set free again and are able to tweet and influence the industry again, which is almost as if people forget that they've gone to jail. But yeah, I mean, I think crisis comms in crypto really starts from Twitter, X, or now that we call it. But it's all about communicating things instantly, or as soon as you have valuable information. But crypto Twitter or crypto X is it's a very influential platform for disseminating information and solving or kind of solving problems. And I like to say that, crypto Twitter is like the Bloomberg chat room for the whole entire industry. It's so fascinating that, an influential leader like CZ could post something and a coin could rally or the market could go up. So someone like Vitalik is also very influential. Whatever he says about Ethereum or even about a coin or a token or project could automatically kind of have an uptick in price as well. So, sorry, I know you asked about crisis comms, but I kind of averted to talk more about how influential these leaders are and how that influences the market. So that's why I think Crypto X is a very interesting platform to watch and monitor.
For sure. What advice would you give to Web3 projects that just want to start PR? Like, what should they focus? Like, what are some of the things that they should focus on?
Yeah. So if you're a project that's just starting, focus on building your, how you explain yourself. So your description, your vision and your mission, align on the key messages of your brand. And then, there's other aspects, your website, your logo and all that. But I think in terms of PR and your messaging, align on kind of what you want to communicate, what your vision is. In terms of when to engage a PR firm and what you need beforehand, I do recommend that teams hire an in-house marketing manager that kind of oversees everything from events to the social media to PR, because PR is just one portion of the whole marketing suite. So that's what I would recommend to projects starting out today.
Another question that I have is also related to this. And this is also like a curiosity of mine, because I feel like a lot of the big guys get to speak at big conferences, which obviously attracts the crowd. So it's always like a vicious circle, let's say, but also many times they're also the ones with like the most amount of money. What can like the smaller guys, let's say, do to grow their reputation or to keep up with this I don't want to call them sharks, because I don't think that's a good way to call them. But like, let's say all these people with like big budgets.
Yeah. So with conferences, of course, there's the sponsorship route where you can pay to have a booth, and some conferences allow you to pay for a speaking slot. Of course, we don't recommend that for our clients. We make sure that we try to get our clients to earn their speaking spot. So really, it's trying to earn your way in. So trying to be innovative when you're, say, pitching to speak at an event, to bring to the table something that's trending, newsworthy, and adding value to the developments in the Web3 space. That's a way to cut through and earn your place on stage if you're bringing something valuable to the conversation. So that's what my advice is to projects who want to kind of keep up and cut through the noise. And it is possible. You just have to find a way to spin, your story and your angle. I like to say there's always a way to spin a story.
For sure. What's your thoughts on like thought leadership, and like how do you position clients as credible voices in such a rapidly changing environment like Web3? Because I feel like we don't really have many of these, but maybe you know better than I do. I know a lot of them on Twitter, but not so much on like publications or like media.
Yeah, I mean, thought leadership is developed through, putting out kind of opinion pieces that help, people think through a different perspective, basically to have an opinion. I think challenges that we need to pull out of our clients is, to be spicier in what you want to bring to the discussion. So yeah, in the PR space, thought leadership comes in the form of an opinion piece, or even just being on a podcast like this, sharing your opinion and thoughts about a particular topic. So that's kind of how we help our clients build their thought leadership. It also is getting them to speak at different events and conferences as well, especially with different forums where there's topics and areas of interest. So getting them in those places of discourse.
What's one of your favorite PR campaigns you run in Web3, and like are there any kind of examples that were done right and you can share with us? And maybe here I want to ask you, like, what are some, because I'm guessing that you don't just place them in media. My guess is that you can do a lot more with PR, and I think with PR in general, like it can entitle a lot more. So I wanted to know, like, what are some campaigns that you've run and you think would be successful, like to give us examples, and like what are some things that can be done from a PR perspective that can enhance a brand or a story?
Yeah, I think it's just so we worked with this market maker called Flowdesk, and we wanted to help them be an authoritative voice on crypto market movements in mainstream media, and I believe that we successfully did that with getting them placements in Bloomberg commenting on market movements. So it's not a particular campaign, but it's as we mentioned, we've been talking about how PR is about a steady drumbeat of mentions in quality publications, and also building a thought leadership profile of their spokesperson. So I find that we did a really good job for them. I also remember this is more crisis comms project, but it really helped with building just elevating Lido's perception in the space, but a lot of people were maybe blaming or speaking about how Lido was focused on centralizing ETH, but actually the very philosophy and ethos of what Lido wants to achieve in this space is to push for more decentralization. They just don't have, not everyone, they don't have enough people or validators in the space, but they wanted to push for decentralization. So I think we worked a lot with speaking with different journalists to help shape that perception. So it's a lot of like perception shaping, narrative shaping work that we do, and and it's not just one major campaign that we push out and then it gets there for that people remember, because people forget those. I mean, they're great media moments, but people often have short attention spans. But it's like, how do you continue shaping a broader narrative in the industry? Another example is a trend that's emerged. Like, well, now we're talking about chain abstraction. It's quite cool to see that Near has owned the chain abstraction narrative, while other projects are talking about chain abstraction and bringing that into the fold. Near and Ilya and his team are leading that discussion. I see, and that's been supported by PR work.
One of the other questions that I got from my community was they were asking, like, what are the differences between like Web3 journalists versus Web2, and like in the sense that, like, how do they like to be approached? Like, is email plus PDF like still a thing, or is it like Telegram, or like what is the best way to like build a relationship with them?
Best way is Twitter. It filters things out, and Telegram, but also meeting them in person at the conferences that they show up at. And email is, while it may be the last place because your message could get lost in a bunch of emails, it's also the best way to kind of like share the full story. But yeah, we kind of a mix of Twitter, Telegram, and meeting them in person. The other thing is to reach traditional journalists. People still like LinkedIn. LinkedIn is still a good place to, reach out to reporters.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
I do have like two very important questions for you. So like one of them, I'm actually going to put you on the spot and see if you have any thoughts on that. How do you think people should approach being on podcasts, and like what do you think are the benefits of people being on a podcast? I think like hearing this from you would make a lot more noise, let's say, compared to like me saying like all this stuff. What do you think this, like, how do you think these people should come on the podcast? Like, what do you think are the benefits, and like what should they expect from it?
Yeah.
And how should they treat the entire experience actually on it?
Sure. When I media train our clients, I like to tell them about the different mediums. So maybe I can talk about like different mediums and the benefit of a podcast. So, with articles, say on Blockworks or CoinDesk, it's just a print, an online version. So you're only going to be quoted maybe once or twice, and it's just like 2 sentences from you. Then there's TV interviews. TV interviews for like CNBC, for example, they're very short form. You have to kind of get your message out in like less than 2 minutes. So you got to really prepare for that. So that's actually a lot more work to prepare for, because you got to like, practice how you're going to get your message across in a short amount of time. And then there's podcasts. Podcasts are a great way. They're longer form. We've been chatting now for, almost an hour, and I have been able to, one, get my tone across. I've been able, on camera, I've been able to, use my body language to, show you how enthusiastic I am and passionate I am about the space. Because that people read more into your body language than actually what you say. And yeah, you can hear my tone of voice, so you can really hear if I'm being genuine about my story. And then, thirdly, you've given me a podcast gives you room to tell stories, and I was able to share a couple of examples of work that we do. This is something that you can't do with a short, 3 to 5 minute TV interview. So, just to summarize my advice for my clients getting on podcasts is to really prepare key messages, 3 key messages, but also examples, stories, and anecdotes to add color to it. So that's the best way to make the most out of a podcast. Also, I would also say podcasts are timeless pieces of content. So you're hopefully going to put this up on on Spotify and on YouTube, and this will be here to watch on the internet for as long as people want to watch it. But also what I say, hopefully it's timeless. Hopefully someone can watch this podcast a year from now, and I'm still bringing value to that. So I think about that in my responses. I do know that I have timed my responses when I say words like this year and this event, but I like to ensure that I'm giving context to what I talk about. So when I say ECC this year, I say ECC in Brussels. So yeah, I think about that a lot as well when I'm giving you my responses.
I think a lot of the times, especially with like the type of speakers that you are, I think the type of advice you give is most times like timeless, like no matter how fast the industry changes. So I think that's very important, and I do agree with you, and that's what I'm trying to tell people as well, that like many times, like this is a piece of content that will stay online for like the longest time, and like you will grow, or the episode will grow with how fast I'm growing, with like the amount of people I'm also growing. So like it's a it's a common effort, let's say, to keep this online, and it's also indexed. So, and I've also seen people, for example, like I've seen people getting back to me, or like I get a lot of DMs, like random DMs from people on Twitter. People tell me like, "Oh my god, I found your podcast. I love it." I'm like, "How did you find this?" Like, "Oh, I was actually trying to get hired by X company, and I was looking up for content on them online, and I found your podcast, and I
Oh,
love the
cool.
interview, and now I know more about them, and like I can like come up with something new in the interview with them." I was like, "Oh, this is really cool."
Yeah.
And this kind of like stories really make me very happy.
Yeah, that's
Um,
awesome. Yeah.
One of the last questions that I have for you is like, how is like being a woman in Web3? Because I also know you have a small baby. So like how is all that experience for you?
Yeah. It's in the early days, it was quite challenging just personally for me having to uh, pitch and work with so many, smart, but really ambitious, but very strong minded men. I think sad. Okay, I'm not going to say sadly, but the reality is 99% or even 100% of our clients are male in terms of founders, male founders. We work with other marketing, managers and they're female, but yeah, I mean, I think that's more of the challenge. I actually appreciate events like She5, which is where we met in Singapore, because I think women just they make crypto easier to understand. We put a lot more care into just bringing your audience with you on a journey. So yeah. Anyway, I don't want to like go on, but like being a woman, it takes a lot of effort and work every day to kind of bring this like energy and persona, and then being a mom is that on top of it. There's quite a lot of conferences, and I get my baby's 8 months right now as we speak. I've been able to come to Singapore with my baby, but yeah, I think we just find a way to make it work with help and with support. We definitely need help, so we have a nanny for sure. But I think over time, I'm not sure how agile and I can be with bringing my baby around to these events. So I'm still on the journey, so I don't have all the answers. But yeah, it takes a lot of time management, energy, and just patience and grace.
I think like we should thank all these women, you and like other women in Web3 that are doing like something similar, either being founders or like they're being marketers and so on. Like just like being in the industry, I think it's very emotionally consuming, let's say. So I think we should like really appreciate all the women out there.
Yeah.
Especially
Yes.
the one with the babies and like building something in the space and trying to
Yeah.
have an impact,
Yeah.
and kind of like looking ahead, like what should we expect from Yap?
Well, the reason why I'm speaking here in Singapore is because we are growing and expanding our reach in the Asia Pacific region. I started my career here as a journalist, and I was born in Malaysia, so APAC's quite exciting. I think we're speaking right now off the back of Token 249. People have seen just how much, interest in crypto from Asia is coming in, and just how exciting this industry is. So you can see that the Yap team is going to expand in the Asia Pacific region, but we also are going to do this globally in New York and in London as well. We're continuing to solidify our brand and our reputation in the Web3 industry with our major partnerships with ETH Denver, ECC, and we're going to continue to do that. So yeah, expect to see us represent more great brands in the space and continue shaping the Web3 PR and comms space.
Very excited to see like how Yap is going to evolve and how the industry is going to evolve as well, because I think they're kind of interconnected. And the last question that I have for you, Samantha, like where can people find you?
Yeah, I am on Twitter at Samantha W Yap, and I spend most of my time there actually, and then also on Telegram. My Telegram ID is the same at Samantha W. Yap. And then you can also find me at all these other events. And we often put out on Twitter at Yap Global Team where we are in the world and, where you can connect with us. We often have events, whether it's an evening mixer or a side event, alongside the major kind of conferences that are happening in the space.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope to see you face to face in the next events, and hope to speak soon and come up with more examples of cool campaigns that you've done.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks, Samantha. Speak soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to our Out of Ordinary podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you would like to hear more content like this, then open up the podcast app and click on the follow or subscribe button. It takes less than 5 seconds and is the single best thing you can do to support the show and stay up to date to more marketing strategies that are being used in the Web3 space.